It's time now for our Entre Nous segment with Solange Mougin, who joins me in the studio. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jeannie.
So today we're talking about the Me Too movement, as here in France, a French film director was convicted of sexually assaulting an actress when she was just a child. This case was very widely followed her, and it's seen as a milestone for so many people. Why?
Well, the actress Adèle Haenel has not only been publicly vocal about what happened to her, but she is widely seen as the first major French actress to say that she was abused and to say that something is deeply and was deeply wrong with the French film industry. In 2019, she shared her story with the French investigative journalism site Mediapart. Now, keep in mind, this was 2 years, so quite a bit of time after the Me Too movement in the U.S. So Adèle Haenel is really credited with having the courage to be the first to speak out publicly, considering the French cultural context here. After Hollywood's Me Too movement, 100 French prominent women, including actresses like Catherine Deneuve, signed a letter in Le Monde in 2018 saying essentially rape is a crime, but Me Too is leading to censorship, that men should have the freedom to bother, or une liberté d'importuner, all in the name of seduction. The letter was met with outrage, but nonetheless, it gives the idea of the societal context in which Haenel spoke out. Her testimony, and those, sadly, of many actresses after her, like Juliette Binoche, they have begun to effectively eat away at this old idea of male directors and other artists of molding young women in the name of their oeuvre. It's called out the power dynamics of artist and muse and how that became an excuse for some of abusing children and women. So the director, Christophe Ruggia's guilty verdict is all the more impactful because of this. It sends the message that abusers, regardless of their profession, their art, their prominence in society, they are not above the law. That's the positive. In the day-to-day, there remains a degree of impunity of such acts that many French women and children go through. A parliamentary report last year found that 8 out of 10 rape victims do not go to the police, in part because of a strong distrust of the French judicial system. Another report found that 94% of cases never reach a courtroom. Haenel herself and others have repeatedly called this out, saying that the French judicial system is failing victims.
Now, in 2020, Adele Haenel made a name for herself when she walked out of the Cesar Awards, the Cesar a bit like the Oscars here in France, and it created a lot of debate and discussion then about Me Too in France, and that debate does, of course, continue today.
Yeah, in 2020, when Roman Polanski was honored at the César as Best Director, despite multiple abuse cases against him, Haenel walked out in anger. The move was widely praised by women's groups. A prominent writer called her a warrior and said that from now on, when faced with the French cinema world's propping up of abusers, on se lève et on se casse, or in English, we stand up and we walk out. Today, the questions that that event raised are still being debated across the globe, and particularly here in France. What do we do with potentially excellent art that's made by potentially horrible people? When and how do we draw that line and make those calls? Just this month, Le Monde asked again this ongoing question, calling it a tormented exercise in finding the right equilibrium. This debate raises a number of questions. Should the works of art where abuse occurred never be showed again? Should they be mandatorily contextualized? This debate was brought up recently with the film Last Tango in Paris. Should we, for example, stop listening to Michael Jackson or no longer see a Woody Allen film? To what extent are viewing these works condoning or not the artist's behavior? And to what extent automatically does the convicted or unconvicted behavior tarnish the work itself? For us, but also for the industry, there are no easy answers here, but it is a debate that continues to come up again and again in the art world and particularly in France.
Absolutely. And since Adele Haenel spoke out here in France, a number of other women have spoken out as well.
Yeah, in the French film industry and in other industries as well. And the list is long and quite disturbing, with Gérard Depardieu being, as one actress put it, just the tip of the iceberg. But some things have changed, for example. Thousands of producers have been trained to spot sexual misconduct. Intimacy coordinators are now often present on sets. There is still, too, though, pushback against Me Too, with some arguing in France that these famous names are being subjected to trial by media, that there's essentially a witch hunt going on towards men in particular. Last year, Mediapart took stock of where France is at in regard to the Me Too movement, and it argued that it is, quote, an incomplete complete revolution. One sociologist in that article said that we're in the midst of, quote, backlashes and swings between advances and reverses, that this is, quote, the rhythm of emancipation.
Solange, just to wrap up today, you're actually going to end on a positive note having to do with the upcoming Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah, and particularly because, at least for this segment, the timing was just perfect. This morning, we found out that Juliette Binoche has been named to lead France's Cannes Film Festival. Last year, she too said that she was a victim of sexual harassment and misconduct on film sets, and that it was abused even earlier as a child. Now, her position in regard to France's Me Too movement, she has been praised for it, also said that men should potentially break their silence as well. All of that is surely not the reason why the festival picked her. It has been 40 years, in fact, that she walked up the steps for the first time. But after Greta Gerwig last year, the festival, and that festival, which was called in 2024 the Me Too edition of Cannes, it does show that the French film industry is, in the least, acknowledging the need to continue the Me Too movement.
It certainly is. And with a great actress as well, Oscar winner Juliette Binoche as well. Thank you so much for that, Solange Moujon, with that look at the Me Too movement here in France and in French cinema.